and so on. Okay, as the load increase, the deflection increase linearly. Linear, it means the graph is just straight line. For linear geometric nonlinear static analysis, if we fix the lateral load Q, let's say 1 kilonewton here, 1 kilonewton, and then we increase the load P, axial load. This is what we will see the graphs. Okay, the graphs that we will see. It's not linear because the graph is curvy like this. Okay, it will tend to the critical loads 107 kilonewton. That's the difference. Okay. Okay, let's now move to the second issue of the structural analysis. That's the mathematical model of the structure. To perform a structural analysis, we need to choose an appropriate mathematical model of the structure. Appropriate models for analysis of cell structures, because our topic is cells. If our real structures is continuous cells, or I think the natural choice is cell models. The natural choice is cell model. If we have Stephen cells, it's a combination cell and 3D frame models. How about grid cells? The topic of our workshop. For grid cell, we can model either with 3D frame model or equivalent continuum cell model. Equivalent continuum cell model, it means we transform with a certain method to become a cell model. Another alternative for all of this, of course, we can use 3D solids model, but this is an expensive model, computationally expensive. Okay, so this is the natural choice. I recommend to use only 3D frame model or grid cell. Okay, let me explain the stress resultants that develop in continuous cells. Okay, if we have a continuous cells and then we what the internal force inside when the cells subjected to loads. Okay, insides there will be membrane forces. Okay, membrane forces consist of compression like this or tension, and also shearing membrane forces. So this is all membrane forces. Okay, it's called stress resultants because it's the integration of the stress along this surface. Okay, this is the integration. Usually, this force is given in the unit of force per unit length in these directions. The other force that develops in continuous cells are bending moment, both in these directions and in these directions. Okay, and twisting moment like this. These moments normally in the unit of length, force per unit length. It means per unit length of this direction and these directions. Okay. And the third one, the third groups of force that develops in continuous cells is shearing force. Okay. Normally in design, this is not very important, but except if there is a very large concentrated force becomes important. And the unit is in the force per unit length. That are the forces in continuous cells. Okay, now let's turn our attention to grid cell for modeling grid cell. Well, for example, if we have a model like this given by an architect, how can we analyze the structure? Well, a grid cell is essentially a 3D frame structure that is curved in space to behave like a cell. This is by definition, right? So the natural choice, as I mentioned before, is to use 3D frame structure model. A frame structure, this is the definition of frame structure. A frame structure, or the other name is skeletal structure, is a structure composed of members whose lengths are significantly larger than their cross-sectional dimensions. This is the definition of frame structure. So actually, what is grid cell? Grid cell just 3D frame structure. Okay. Of course, as I mentioned before, there is an alternative model to use an equivalent continuous cell model, but I don't recommend for design. This is just for studying the overall behavior. Okay, so I recommend to use 3D frame structure model. Okay, let's talk in details about 3D frame model. In the frame model, the stress resultant on the forces at the cross sections includes axial or normal force, bending moments about two major axes, and shear forces in the directions of two major axes, and torsional moment about the longitudinal axis. Here is the illustration. We have axial force, can be tension or compression. This is the torsional moment, okay, that make the member tends to rotate about this axis, the longitudinal axis. And then this is the bending moment and shear. The tendency is if we have bending moment, there will be always shear. Okay. This is bending moment and shear in other directions, in this direction. For the stress resultants, so that's the difference between continuous cells and grid cells regarding the internal force. Another consideration of modeling structure is the joints. Okay, joints can be the spots like this, or free, or connection here. Each joint, the displacement components at the joints, this is for each joint we have the displacement, okay? It's called degrees of freedom. So in general, for 3D frame, we have 3 degrees of freedom in X direction, Y direction, and Z direction, and the 3 rotation, this is about X axis, Y axis, and Z axis. It should be noted that when modeling the structure, the number of joints should be sufficient to describe the geometry of structure model. Of course, that's clear, right? But moreover, for curve structures like arcs or maybe grid cells, the joint spacing should be 15% or less. Okay, it's recommended to be 15%. Sorry, not 15%, 15 degrees or less. At the spots, 1 or more degrees of freedom are restrained. That is the displacement. Restraint, it means that the displacement is specified and the corresponding reaction is computed during the analysis. Without these spots, without specifying this, the structure will be unstable. So we cannot perform a structural analysis using computer. So this is very important to have adequate spots in our model. Of course, not only in our model, but in real when we construct the cells, okay? Talking about the spots, there are basically 3 types of spots: hinge, roller, and what else? This is the illustration: hinge, roller, and fixed. Yes, the fixed, roller. Okay. Another spot types is maybe spring spot. What's the difference mathematically? For example, hinge. What does it mean, hinge? Hinge, it means we prevent displacement in the 3 directions, in the X direction here, Y directions, and Z direction, but we allow the rotations in all directions. How about rollers? For rollers, is just we prevent the displacement in the Z directions. If fix all the components of the displacement, we prevent to move. Another alternative is spring spots, but the difficulty is to determine the spring constants. It's free to move, but with some rigidity. Okay. That's about the spots. How about the connections? The connection models. Basically, there are 3 types of connections. First one is fixed connections. It means no relative rotation between the connected member. The second one is pin connections or simple connections, allow some freedom for slight rotation, and semi-rigid connections. Okay, this is the 3 types of connections. This is the illustrations. This is the symbols that we use for pin connections. In steel structures, the typical pin connection is like this. The details of the pin connection is steel structures. Okay, so we use just this one and then bolts to here, the T section. For rigid connections, in addition to T section, maybe we need to weld here, and also use stiffener. So it can, the column here can receive the bending moment as well. For semi-rigid connection between these two. The problem is, how about bamboo? Well, typical traditional bamboo connection is just friction tight lacing like this. This is with some cord or rope can be made from grass or others. Maybe can be also made from metal wire. This is difficult to model, more difficult because not in the category of this. I recommend to use like this. Okay, this let be in one direction like this and this direction. So we have two knots here, two joints, two knots, and then we use constraints in the X and Y direction. Normally in the structural analysis software we have an option to constrain the joints. So with these constraints, the joints will move together as both in X, Y directions. Okay, that's my recommendation for modeling bamboo connections. Okay, let's discuss now the third aspect of the structural analysis, that material properties. Members of frame structures generally assumed to be homogeneous. Homogeneous, it means the same material from point to point. It means, for example, if the material made from steel, it has the same properties from point to point. And also we assume that most oftenly isotropic. What is isotropic? It means it has the same physical properties in different directions. So we consider in one point only, but different directions. Okay, that's the difference. This is the most widely used assumptions, but of course, I know that bamboo actually is not isotropic. It's anisotropic, but this is the simplification in structural analysis. Well, how to obtain the mechanical properties? The question is that the mechanical behaviors materials under load is provided by normally plotting axial stress against strain from experiment. So it should be from experiment. This is some typical stress strain behavior of different materials. For example, if we have steel, low carbon steel like this, first will be elastic linear. After reach a value, then will be flat like this, is called yielding, and then this is strain hardening. For wood, maybe here don't have bamboo, and but I think bamboo is similar with wood, right? Maybe like this, there is no yielding, just mostly linear elastic, and rubber and so on. Okay, this is what we should know in order to analyze a structure. Well, from experimental values, we obtain one of the important parameter, that's the modulus of elasticity. The modulus of elasticity is the ratio between stress and strain. Okay, let me draw here. I hope I can draw. So this is the typical stress strain. This is strain. This is stress. Maybe it's still in the linear elastic zone. This is one unit of strain. This is E. Okay. So this is the slope of this line, the modulus of elasticity. Well, the stress corresponding to highest point of a stress strain, highest point of a stress strain in the graph is called ultimate strength. This is called the strength of the materials, right? Usually we refer to the ultimate strength. Okay. Normally, materials we divided into two groups. First, ductile, such as steel or ammonium, and the other is non-ductile or brittle. For ductile material, we have yield strength, but for brittle, of course, we don't have it. When a frame member is axially loaded, the elongation produced by the force is accompanied by contraction in any transverse direction. So we can define the second parameter of the structural analysis is what's called Poisson ratio. So if we apply load here, the bar is not only become longer but also contract in the perpendicular direction. The ratio between the lateral strain in this direction and the longitudinal direction is called Poisson ratio. This is the important structural parameters if we model as isotropic. Okay, so here is the summary for the material properties. We have modulus elasticity, Poisson ratio, yield strength for ductile materials, and ultimate strength. Okay. Maybe for bamboo, we also have a kind of modulus of fracture, okay, in bending because we don't have yield strength. This is the typical material properties. We can compare the density, for example, steel, aluminum, concrete, western hemlock. This is the wood that used in the manhel, and bamboo. Bamboo, of course, depends on the species. There are so many species of bamboo as Ibu Esti has talked yesterday. Modulus elasticity, there is no available Poisson ratio because bamboo is actually anisotropic, but we may assume that it's about the same as concrete. There is no strength, yield strength, of course, because not non-ductile, but we have ultimate bending strength, maybe around 135 megapascal. So basically, bamboo is the strength, the tensile strength of bamboo is close to steel. Good, right? Of course, less than the steel, but close to steel. But how about the compressive strength? Compressive strength may be close to concrete. Okay. Normal concrete. Okay. Lastly, about the loadings. How to determine the loadings? The loadings normally we refer to design codes. One of the most popular design code is this one, minimum design loads and associated criteria for buildings and the structures. This is also the codes that adopted in Indonesia. Okay. In this code, we categorize the loads into several types of loads. There's dead loads, live loads, wind loads, earthquake loads. This is the most basic types of loads. And I think for strain grid cells, it's important also to consider safe training forces and effects. Okay, so this is the symbol T in the design codes. Okay, the dead load and live load is gravity load, while the wind and earthquake load mostly are lateral loads. Okay, of course, earthquake also induce vertical loads, but normally we neglect the vertical components. Wind load can make pressure in the windward direction and suction in the leeward directions, but also can make pressure on the roof. Okay, downward pressure on the roof. That's the loads we consider normally in designing structure. Okay, thank you very much for your kind attention. Maybe I return to Bu Ruli.
Yeah, Pak.
Okay, let me.
Yeah, thank you very much, Pak. Actually, we still have a lot of time, Pak.
Yes, we can use for question and answer. I think.
Okay. Yes, that's great. It's very interesting presentation. Thank you very much, and very really has strong connection with our topic today about the bamboo design. Is there any question from participants? You can drop your question in the chat box, or you can ask directly to Pak Wong. I saw here in the rooms quite several of civil engineering students, or probably experts, yeah, Pak. They already graduated from Petra, or probably alumni.
Yes, has become expert.
Expert, yes.
Yes.
Is there any questions? Or probably I can start the discussion, Pak. You said that grid shell design is more or less related to sustainable design. Sustainable design. Probably you can elaborate your opinion about this, Pak Wong.
Sustainable because grid cells spans a long distance with the minimum use of materials. So we use that's the key, right? We save the materials, the amount of materials. And secondly, if the grid cells made from natural resources, natural materials such as wood or bamboo is even more sustainable because, as you know, it's bamboo and also timber are renewable materials, and carbon sequester. That's the first thing in terms of materials use, and the secondly in terms of the use, maybe in terms of lighting in the we can if lighting and also maybe is can the structure can absorb let the light pass through. Okay, so no need much lighting from electricity. That's is sustainable. Make it sustainable.
Okay, so it relates about the material itself that is renewable and also the form that makes the direct light from outside, yeah, Pak.
Right.
Yeah. Is there any questions? It's freely to ask in Indonesian if you want. That's very okay. Pak Wong will answer in English, or you can ask in English, or you can ask in Japanese, probably, ya, Pak.
Yes, but I think I don't understand. You can translate, Bu Ruli.
Oh, Sundanese.
Yeah, Sundanese is okay because I come from West Java.
Yes. Is there anyone? Pak Wong, I think
Yes.
it's my turn again. You talk about bamboo connection, Pak.
Yes.
What is the best for the rope that you think? Is it okay if you use, if I see my tukang gitu, Pak, ya? they use the like wire cable. Is it okay, or what is the best suggestion from you about the rope for the connection?
The rope for connection is very important. So it's I think for to make it in building to become applicable in practice, I think should be tested. Okay, the tensile strength of the connections, because that's will be critical point. Okay, so yes, it's possible make from rope or wire, metal wire. Maybe it's possible to just to overlap each other and then put the tight rope, but the strength of the rope itself should or the cord itself should be tested. Okay, for design. Recently there is a paper about different connection for bamboo. Not that's the traditional connection, but it may be combined with bolts or maybe steel. Okay, in combination with other materials. Okay, there is a paper about that, about recent advances of connection in bamboo structure.
Okay, we need to refer to that paper, I think,
yes,
ya, Pak,
yes.
for the best connection. Okay, thank you, Pak, for your answer. Is there any questions? Others questions? Please, you can raise your that's one question. Please, Bu Esti, you can open your mic.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Ruli, and also Pak Wong. I learned a lot from your presentation today. When this is related to my case, when we design a form and then analyze the form in the structural analysis program, either it is Karamba or Abacus or SEP, and then they show about the stress distribution, and then for the shell to design a shell, we should do an optimization to find the optimum geometry for the shell, if I'm not mistaken. So how we use this stress distribution information to, like, it will become an iterative process. Like, we will go to the structural analysis and then go to the design, and then the result from the structural analysis, we use that result as an input for our design, and then we go back to the structure analysis until we found the optimum shape for or optimum form for our design. And then but I'm still a little bit confused how the stress distribution can be said as optimum or not optimum. Is there any criteria, or if as an architect we tend to look at the visualization, for example, like there are a lot of red area in the stress distribution, or we should keep changing the form until we found it safe, or is there any criteria for that? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Miss SD, for your questions. Your question is quite difficult because it's actually advanced structural analysis. Here we go. Okay, if we have the result from structural analysis, when we get the stress, and then from the stress we should compare with the strength of the materials, whether it still satisfies or still the stress still below the Lobel stress. Okay, if still below, yes, but maybe it's not yet optimum, in the sense that for cell structures I think for cells or grid cells, the optimum one if the dominant stress within the cells is axial force, not bending moment. Because if we use the structure develops too much bending moment, the material the cross section normally needs larger cross sections. So it's an iterative process, because when we found that some shape is maybe the bending moment is too large, we have to change to another step, another form. Okay, so it's become an iterative process to achieve an optimal shape. It's right, it's correct, but there is some algorithm for achieving that, and that's optimization algorithm such as genetic algorithm and so on. Okay, that's quite advanced, but already included in software, I think. So basically, the software will compare with some criteria of the what is optimal. Optimal in terms of the magnitude of bending moment and normal force, or optimum in the sense of the strength of materials. Okay, so there should be some criteria, otherwise we cannot say it's optimal or not. So the answer is strength of materials, or maybe the distribution of moment should be minimized, the distribution of moment. I think that's what I know.
Okay, thank you, Pak Wong.
Yeah, thank you, Bu Esti. Thank you,
Later,
Pak
I will give example in the second session in Monday, maybe about comparing the strength and the stress distribution. Okay.
Yeah, that's great, Pak Wong. So, is there any other questions from participants? You can write down your questions on the chat box or directly open mic. I think all participants already get the insight from you, Pak. Not busy in their mind.
Okay, it's free to ask questions if.
Yeah, that's one question from Christina Putri Larasati. Please, Christina, you can open mic.
Good morning, Mr. Wong, and also Bu Ruli and everyone. That was such a impressive and insightful lecture this morning that I heard. There are a question that I want to ask. There are things that we need to consider while we build this kind of construction, right? Because it's really complicated. Like from yesterday, Mr. Wen explanation, it takes a lot of things that we need to consider as well. And in Indonesia, mostly we still depend on the tukang and craftsmanship. And I believe there will be like human error possibility. So my question is how to eliminate human error during construction? Yeah, I think that's my question. Thank you, Mr. Wong. Yeah.
Great. Please, Pak Wong, you can answer directly.
Okay, thank you, Miss Christina, for your questions. Your question is to eliminate the error in the construction, right?
Yes.
I think from my perspective as a structure designer, we should give a safety factor in our design to tolerate some maybe dimensional error. Okay, so that's covered in the safety factor. But in the construction management, maybe we need to supervise well, so that's to minimize the to supervise well the construction process. So that's to minimize error. So we have to maybe have some people to inspect them when they work. Okay, to work precisely to the given target, according to the given target. That's to minimize the error in fabrication or construction.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Wong, for your
Okay.
answers.
Thank you, Christina. Or probably Bu Esti can also add more information about how to supervise, yeah, Pak Wong, supervise our
Because
tukang. Yeah, so make it more precise. Bu Esti, probably you have a experience working. I know that about last 2 years or 3 years you built a big one-to-one models of bamboo.
Yes, I built but it is a reciprocal system using bamboo with students. So if I agree with Pak Wong answer, so we have to give safety factor during our analysis for our structure, and I think it's common practice for the structural engineering to do that because we don't know how in the craftsmanship will, or the construction worker will build the building. However, if we also for some of experimental building like this type of grid shell, I remember yesterday when Xiao told us that one example at Dawnland Grid Shell, they make a prototype first before building the real one. So sometimes people also, if for some difficult or some complicated structure system, so people then build the prototype first before build the real one. And also there are some we have to be ready if there are some material that breaking or damage during the process. And I think it's quite similar with Pak Wong answered that. Okay, I think that's all for me, Miss Ruli.
Thank you, Bu
Thank you,
Esti, for your
Esti.
experience. That's one question from Felicia Putri, Pak, in the chat
yes.
box. I want to ask, does bamboo grid shell have a chance in Indonesia, especially to withstand earthquakes, which have been happening in Indonesia recently? Thank you. It's about how to deal with earthquakes, about bamboo grid shell. Please, Pak Wong.
Okay, thank you, Miss Felicia, for your questions concerning about earthquake. If bamboo is a light materials, so and also very flexible, so it's good material for resisting earthquake. So I don't worry about that because light and also ductile. And even though maybe, well, yeah, of course, in the structural analysis, we should include the earthquake loss, right? The acceleration using time history analysis. We cannot use static analysis in this process, of course. So if our structure is quite big and high, more than 8 meters, let's say, I think we should include the time history analysis in our analysis. Maybe just non-linear time history analysis. So the stress distribution in the bamboo already include the earthquake. So we designed the bamboo structure also with respect to earthquake. But I don't worry actually, because generally cells is quite robust to earthquake, unlike tall buildings. Okay, if tall buildings, maybe we should be very careful with the earthquake. We have strong column, weak beam concept, and so on. Okay, but for cells, I have some experience analyzing cells with using dynamic loads and quite resistant to earthquake. Okay, so not a big force to worry on. Okay, to worry, but yes, should be included in the design as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Pak Wong. It's probably because the bamboo have a flexibility, ya, Pak.
Yes, and also damping important because earthquake is dynamic loads. Normally for timber and bamboo, I think the damping is quite high.
Okay.
So it can reduce the vibrations. Higher than steel for sure, and also concrete.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Pak Wong. There's one question. Joshua Christabel raised hand. Please, you can open your mic, Joshua.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Ruli. Hi, Pak Wong.
Hello.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. I want to ask that your presentation tells that we use isotropic materials to model the bamboo structures. Is there any significant effects on internal force if we model it not using isotropic but using an isotropic? Because we know that bamboo structures may be not just grid shells. Maybe there's a frame and the roof using grid shells. I think there will be significant effects on that. What about it, Mr. Wong? Thank you.
Well, if we use an isotropic model, the problem is when we perform analysis, we have to input many material parameters that we should get from experiment. That's the difficult part, okay? Because normally not available. As I don't know actually the influence of the isotropic and anisotropic model, but I think isotropic assumptions mostly commonly used to simplify the analysis. Otherwise, it will be difficult. Yes, it may be a quite interesting research topics. Maybe I should look for the journals about that. The difference between modeling using anisotropic and isotropic materials. But I cannot answer because I'm unaware of that. Sorry, Joshua. But yes, there should be difference. But I think mostly just like concrete. Okay, concrete also actually when we talk about reinforced concrete, it's actually not homogeneous, right? Because we have steel and concrete inside. But when we perform analysis, we always assume that it's homogeneous and isotropic, right? Just like that, maybe. So it might be a good enough approximation, I think. But I cannot answer definitely. I have to looking for maybe a paper about that.
Yeah, so you can continue with new research topic, Pak Wong, with Joshua.
Do I still have many times?
We have time until 10:40. We still have
10:40. Oh,
yeah.
at least my presentation is too fast, right?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Maybe I have to elaborate more.
Yeah.
Maybe let me continue. While if you have some questions, let me continue with I'm talking about types of structural analysis. Okay, let me present because actually I have some more slides.
Okay, sure, Pak. Yes, please.
Okay. Oh, sorry, not this one. Not that one. Sorry for presenting too fast. I think I will not have enough time, so that I move in hurry from one slide to another slide. Okay, this is some references that I use for developing these slides. I think some of these are very basic books like this one, Mechanics of Materials, Principles of Structural Stability Theory, but also have some papers here, okay? This one. This is the structural analysis book, including I used a dissertation here to develop these slides. This is the software that I usually use, SAP 2000. Including this is from my dissertation as well, okay? Okay. Let me tell about structural analysis. Category of structural analysis, okay? If we talk about structural analysis, it's a wide subject actually. It's generally, if we can categorize into two categories. The first one is static analysis, and the second one is dynamic analysis. What's the difference? Static analysis, we don't consider the inertial effect, okay? And also we don't consider how the loadings changing with time. While the dynamic analysis, the structural analysis, we include the inertial effect. The inertial effect means that the mass times acceleration. For the static and dynamic, we can categorize the analysis into two types. That's linear static and non-linear static. Also for dynamic, linear and non-linear dynamic. And for linear, is not this is the standard analysis, linear static analysis, standard analysis for a structural engineer. Normally, we perform an analysis using this analysis first before going to others. And then maybe we need to perform dynamic linear analysis if we expect some materials in the structure has been go beyond the elastic range, then maybe we have to move to non-linear, either static or dynamic material non-linearity. Whenever we expect the deformation of the structure is large enough, for example, in the strain grid cells, initially we have a flat geometry and then we put some forces, maybe by cranes and or scaffolding, and then we make the form of the grid cell. It's need geometric nonlinear analysis because it's large displacement, okay? So it's not enough to perform static linear analysis. Another type of nonlinear geometric is contact. That happens when, for some period of in the structural analysis, the contact or the boundary conditions change. For dynamic structural analysis, nonlinear dynamic analysis, we also have the same material, geometric, and impact. Impact, it means a sudden force on the boundary conditions. This impact analysis may be, for example, in the simulation of car crash analysis. That's just a brief overview of the structural analysis. And for grid cells, I think the static nonlinear geometry analysis is important. Okay, maybe if made from bamboo material is not our concerns, and also contact, but it seems that static nonlinear geometry analysis is important. Maybe that's one additional slide from me, Ms. Ruli, Ibu Ruli.
Thank you, Pak. Thank you, Pak.
Yes.
Thank you for additional and extra slides for us, Pak, about structural analysis. Is there any question? That's one participant raised hand. Christina, you want to ask something? Oh no, I think, yeah, she forgot to lower her hands. Is there any questions from participants? I think if you don't mind, Pak Wong,
Yes.
can we share your PPT to the participants?
Yes.
Okay. And also, can you give us your contact number, probably, if
Oh.
students or participants?
Okay. Let me show because the PowerPoint, I mean, because in
Yes.
PowerPoint I have my contact number. Here is my contact number.
Yeah.
WFTJONG@fitra.ac.id.
Yeah. So if you don't mind, students, if have questions about structure in their design, in bamboo design, they can email you. Yeah, Pak.
Okay.
If you don't mind. Yeah.
Yes, if the committee can distribute my PPT slides, but in PDF version.
Okay. Yeah, we will do. I will. I think Pak Wayne will share in a general channel, so all students can download from there. Okay. I think that's all. Or probably there's last questions from audience before we close. Wait. There's a guess. One guess. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay. I think that's all, Pak Wong. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
And your sharing about analysis structure. I hope the participants particularly can use this knowledge to design the bamboo grid shell. Thank you very much, Pak Wong.
Okay, you are welcome. My pleasure to share my knowledge with you all.
Thank you, Pak. Okay, for all the audience, thank you. We finished our plenary course 3 in this bamboo workshop. And then we have plenary course 4 started at 1 p.m. entitled Form Finding of Grid Shell Structure from Bu Esti. Everybody welcome to join the plenary course 4 at 1 p.m. But for students or for workshop participants, we will join at 10:45 to the student will present their findings regarding the assignment from yesterday. And there will be 3 groups, and each group has a subgroup. I divided, so we have like 9 subgroup. Each subgroup has around maximum of 5 minutes presentation. Please prepare your presentation. You can use your Miro or your PPT or anything that you can show us your assignment results. Thank you very much, all audience. You can join the plenary course 4 at 1 p.m. and students, we will meet again at 10:45 for the presentation of assignment. Thank you very much. See you later and soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.